In 1984, we were first considering a landfill down in this area. In 1985, they picked Site 41.
Elmvale is an idyllic small town in the heart of central Ontario. It lies in one of the most fertile agricultural areas in the province and is a stone's throw from Wasaga Beach, an Ontario summer vacation hotspot. Beneath the town is the Alliston Aquifer, which extends south almost to Toronto and contains some of the purest groundwater ever tested. It provides drinking water for most of the area's residents. But for the last 25 years, the residents of Elmvale and the surrounding area have been fighting a battle to protect this water. It began with the closure of the nearby Posey landfill.
Mr. Posey, I have the documentation where the Ministry of the Environment had approved that site. And we have the documentation showing what was dumped in there illegally, when it was dumped, who was involved with the Ministry of the Environment.
In 1983, it was discovered that toxic material had been dumped in the Posey landfill under the cover of dark. The ground had become contaminated and 2 nearby residents were diagnosed with cancer.
And as far as we're concerned, the Posey landfill site, if any monitoring had to be done, the ministry should put the bill for that, because they come in and they told Mr. Posey everything was all right, you can accept all this stuff. So we feel the Ministry of the Environment here cannot be trusted.
A new dump for the county was needed, and Elmvale's Site 41 was on the short list. The Environmental Assessment Board that was created to find a suitable location strongly rejected Site 41 in their report, prompting the Waste Management Association to appeal to the provincial government. The province issued the Assessment Board an order in council which demanded them to return with the right answer.
And this is the first environmental assessment hearing that was ever overturned, where the board chairman states he had no other alternative but to pass Site 41 because of the wording in the OIC, the order in council, which come from the David Peterson government. The county took over waste management in 1990. So then the proponent for Site 41 was the county of Simcoe. But with that certificate, the county had to prove to the Ministry of the Environment how Site 41 was going to work.
Tests of the water at Site 41 showed it to be comparable to 1,000-year-old Arctic glacier ice. The site had been largely chosen due to the high water pressure under the ground, which would provide an upward gradient against the trash to prevent a leak like that at Posey. But this very feature would prove disastrous if another leak were ever to develop.
We had pretty well evidence that this thing was not going to work. All right? For an example, when they dug the storm management pond, okay, they had dump trucks down in that hole. All right? When we were in the hearing, this site was so wet that they had to dewater it. Okay? They couldn't get anything in there to pack it. It was so wet. So how can you drive a dump truck in it if it's not wet?
The county hired a hydrologist to ensure that the site had sufficient upward pressure to protect the water. However, his testing showed inconsistent levels throughout the site, prompting concern from the protesters. Their suspicions were further raised when the county refused to show the hydrologist data and the numbers mysteriously changed.
That's where the problem comes. And during the hearing, it was in evidence that there was 1.7 million liters of upward gradients under the 52 acres of Site 41. At the 2001 CMC meeting, that number went from 1.7 to 50 million liters of upward gradients under the site. And that set some alarm bells off.
In 2010, after a quarter of a century on the table, Council held a final vote to determine the fate of Site 41. The tide had finally turned, and by a large majority, the Council voted to halt construction permanently.
It was pure public pressure that stopped this thing from going ahead.